Okay, let me check. Camera on, lights good to go, background not bad, needs a little work. Me, fully dressed. Honestly, it can't get much worse than this. Okay, before we get started with the big screen leap, obviously we need our source material. Here's our source material. Here's our big screen. Now it's going to take the leap. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that part would feel a lot bigger. Look, some adaptations are subtle, sometimes they go all out, and sometimes the leap just doesn't work. But that's why we review them. Okay, before I get the urge to throw more books across the room, let's get to the review. Roll the intro. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw you. I promise I won't do it again. Oh, hey everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Big Screen Leap, the show where we take stories from words, pixels, and scripts and see how they land as Hollywood hits. I'm your host, William Redmond, and on this show, we're here to ask the most important question. Just because a book, TV show, or video game is successful, does it really need a big screen movie adaptation? I absolutely love this question because the answer to it is both yes and no. Because success doesn't necessarily justify a movie, but it also doesn't disqualify it.
On the no side of things, a lot of stories are already complete. They've told their story in the exact format they were meant to live. A book can sit with you for long periods of time and give you an inside look to the minds of the characters they created. TV shows, for the most part, have the luxury of time, seasons to grow, and evolve their worlds into what they want. Video games don't just tell a story, they toss you a controller and say, hey, get in here, you're a part of this.
And honestly, when those stories connect, when they're already beloved, turning around and putting them in a 2-hour movie kind of feels unnecessary when you think about it. It ends up feeling less like an expansion and more like a reduction. And that's when an adaptation starts to feel unnecessary. Not because they're bringing anything new to the lore, but because the name has value to it. And honestly, in those cases, the movie isn't celebrating the original media, it's just taking a shortcut on it. But here's where it can be a yes, and it starts with the fans.
Because for fans, movie adaptations are exciting. They're events. They're announcements that make you stop scrolling and go, wait, they're making that into a movie? They spark speculation, casting debates, trailer breakdowns, and late night arguments with friends about whether it's going to work or completely fall apart. And honestly, it's a chance for those fans to introduce others who might not have interacted with the story with the first available media and share their love for the lore. And there's something special about seeing a story you love take up a space on the biggest screen possible.
Other reasons why it's a success? Because sometimes the story just wants to take a leap. A good adaptation doesn't replace the original, it expands its reach. It becomes a doorway into the same world, and that's the real question. It's not, is this movie popular enough to be liked? It's, can this movie honor what the fans have already seen and give new fans a reason to care? If the answer is no, if the movie only exists because the name of the brand is popular, then yeah, it's probably not going to be worth it for it to make the leap. But if the answer is excitement, accessibility, emotional impact, and a shared experience only the film can provide, then yeah, the leap may be worth it. And that's why we're here. We're here to take a look at it both on the fan side and on the critic side, to celebrate the ones that earned that excitement, and for the bad ones, trust me, there are going to be some that we rip into during this show. But for the ones that are bad, we're going to take a look at them and see why they were bad and what they could have done to be fixed.
We're going to spend time talking about both the original version and the movie version in their productions. We'll talk about the similarities and differences from one media to the other, and whether or not it was worth it or not for said media to make the leap to the big screen.
With that said, let's get into our first episode for the day. We're greasing our hair, we're donning our leather jackets, or, well, as close to a leather jacket that we can get.
We're taking a look at the 1963 book by S.E. Hinton and the 1983 movie adaptation directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It's The Outsiders.
So why The Outsiders as the first adaptation for this show to review? Why not do something more popular like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games? Believe me, when I first started thinking of ideas for this show, those were some of the first ones that popped up. And we're going to get to those eventually in the near future.
But the more I thought about it, The Outsiders was another story that I enjoyed in my younger days. I was first introduced to this story when I was 14 as a required part of my English class in junior high, and it's a story that has stuck with me ever since, and I'll explain more as we go into the video.
But don't just take my word for it. This story is considered one of the closest media adaptations out there. Not to mention, it helped jumpstart the career of so many well-known actors today. With that being said, let's get started with The Outsiders, starting with the plot. So, before we get started with our story, just a word of warning for now and for all future Big Screen Leap episodes. These episodes are going to contain spoilers for all stories, so if you're not familiar with a certain media, whether it's a book, TV show, video game, or the movie, I would go ahead and get yourself familiarized. So for this instance, The Outsiders, I would either pause this video, go read the book, watch the movie, and then come back so you're better equipped for what we're about to discuss. If you're watching this video, I assume that you're a fan of The Outsiders, but if you need a quick refresher, I have you with the plot.
Alright, so picture this. It's the 1960s in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and society split right down the middle. On one side, you've got the greasers, the kids from the working class neighborhoods, leather jackets, long hair, and a reputation that makes you question their persons. On the other side, you've got the socias, the rich kids, polished cars, fancy clothes, and a smugness that comes from knowing the world's always going to hand you the nicer slice of pie. Our story is told through the eyes of Ponyboy Curtis, a 14-year-old greaser who's smart, sensitive, and maybe just a little too dreamy for the rough crowd he runs with. He lives with his two older brothers, Derry, who's had to become the father figure after their parents died, and Soda Pop, the fun-loving middle brother who tries to keep the peace. Now, the Curtis family has their own crew. Johnny Cade, Ponyboy's best friend, who's quiet and scarred from years of abuse at home, and Dallas Winston, the tough-as-nail outlaw of the group, and others like Two-Bit and Steve. They've all got their rough edges, but they're family to each other in a world that doesn't seem to give them much else. One night, things spiral out of control. Ponyboy and Johnny get jumped by a group of socias led by a guy named Bob Sheldon. The socias are drunk, aggressive, and looking to teach the greasers a lesson after they are hanging out with the soc Cherry Valance at the drive-in, who just so happens to be Bob's girlfriend. But when Bob tries to drown Ponyboy in a fountain, Johnny panics and stabs him with his switchblade. Bob dies right there, and suddenly, these two kids are on the run. Dallas, being the hardened survivor he is, helps them out. He gives them money and tells them to hide in an abandoned church out in the countryside. For days, Ponyboy and Johnny lay low, cutting their hair, reading Gone with the Wind, and watching the sunrise. For the first time, they're away from the chaos, but they're also wrestling with what they've done. Then fate comes knocking again. The church catches fire on accident, and when Ponyboy and Johnny see children trapped inside, they don't hesitate. They charge in, saving the kids, but Johnny's badly injured when the roof collapses. He's rushed to the hospital, his body broken, his fate uncertain. Meanwhile, back at home, tensions boil over. The Greasers and the Socias are gearing up for a rumble, a big bare-knuckle brawl to decide who runs the streets. Ponyboy fights, but his mind is with Johnny, who's slipping further away in the hospital. When Ponyboy and Dallas visit Johnny, sweet, gentle Johnny tells Ponyboy something that sticks like a star.
Stay gold, Ponyboy. Stay gold.
He's quoting a poem by Robert Frost that Ponyboy told him while they were looking at the sunrise. In a way, he's urging Ponyboy to hold on to the innocence, beauty, and hope that the world wants to beat out of them. Then Johnny dies, and it rips through the group like a bomb. Dallas, unable to handle losing the only person he really loved, goes off the rails. He robs a store, pulls a gun on the cops, and forces them to shoot him down, and it leaves Ponyboy shattered, watching this world collapse around him. The story ends with Ponyboy trying to make sense of it all. He realizes that the cycle of violence between the Socias and the Greasers doesn't really get anyone anywhere. Johnny's words become his guide. He channels his pain and experience into writing, deciding to tell his story, and that story is The Outsiders itself.
This isn't a story about gangs or fights. It's about class, identity, and brotherhood, and holding on to your humanity when the world tries to strip it away. It's about beauty, sunsets, friendship, even in the ugliest corners of life. But obviously, a story like this just can't appear out of thin air. With that being said, let's introduce you to the author of The Outsiders and how they got their start.
Let's roll it back to where it all began. In 1965, Susan Eloise Hinton, or more commonly known as S.E. Hinton, began writing The Outsiders.
At the time, she was only 15 years old, and when it got published, she was only 17.
Part of the reason she chose to write this book is because she was frustrated with the lack of relatable pop culture being produced for teenagers, even being quoted as saying she wanted to read books that show teenagers outside the life of Mary Jane Went to the Prom. She wanted people reading her book to see that teenagers struggle without the usual happy ending. She would go on to say that another part of her writing this book was that she wanted to show the true class divisions that she got to see firsthand while attending Will Rogers High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Once published in 1967, the book became a revolutionary piece of young adult literature, selling millions of copies and sparking discussions about what teens were really going through in America.
Characters like Ponyboy, Johnny, Dallas, and Cherry gave readers a raw, emotional look into the Greasers and Socias' lives, and made us realize that just because somebody grew up in a certain lifestyle, that doesn't necessarily define them as a person. And that's something that still resonates to this day.
Obviously, a story like this is bound to face some sort of criticism, which it did, as it was sometimes banned for its depictions of gang violence, teen drinking, and smoking. But it also did what Hinton set out to do, and that was make a book that laid out the issues teens face. To this day, the Outsiders novel is used as a teaching tool, mainly in the English classroom. It helps to enhance students' comprehension and critical thinking skills. As of today, 14 million copies of The Outsiders has been sold, and Hinton has received numerous awards for her book.
Fast forward to the early 1980s, it started with Francis Ford Coppola. That's right, the Francis Ford Coppola. Godfather of movies like Apocalypse Now and, well, the Godfather trilogy.
He received a letter from a librarian named Jo Ellen Misakayan. I hope I pronounced that name right. If I didn't, I apologize. From California. In the letter, written by her and her students at her school, they implored to Coppola how great the book was and how he should turn it into a movie. In the letter, they provided a copy of the book, as well as a petition with 150 signatures for him to make a movie.
If that's all it took, then I would petition to every great director to make every book adaptation into a movie and do it exactly how it was done in the book. Then again, if I did that, I probably wouldn't be here making this video today. I I think I'm just going to keep that to myself.
After Coppola read the book, he was intrigued with the project, so he reached out to Hinton to acquire the rights and began developing the screenplay. During pre-production, Coppola and his team worked closely with Hinton and let her contribute ideas to the movie. Coppola wanted a faithful adaptation that preserved the novel's themes of classic struggle, loyalty, and the search for identity. But of course, in order to create the adaptation, you have to have quality casting.
Coppola and casting director Fred Rose had a large open casting call that included many up-and-coming actors. They had them each read against each other in a live script reading to test chemistry to see who all could work with each other. Eventually, Coppola and his team had their cast. And back in the day, you probably didn't know a lot of these people. But today, when I read off this cast list, you're probably going to know every single one of them. I'm talking people like C. Thomas Howell, who played Ponyboy, and is also famous for movies like E.T. and Red Dawn. Matt Dillon, who plays Dallas, and is also known for Rumblefish and There's Something About Mary. Ralph Macchio as Johnny Cade, the Karate Kid himself. Rob Lowe as Soda Pop Curtis, famous for St. Elmo's Fire. Emilio Estevez as Two-Bit, the Coach Bombay himself. And then Tom Cruise as Steve, and Patrick Swayze as Daryl. Do I need to mention everything that those guys were in? I do. Well, I'm not gonna, because we're gonna be here forever.
Filming began in March of 1982. Wanting to stay close to Hinton's novel, most of the filming took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
See, and this is why I wanted to do The Outsiders as my first video for the Big Screen Leap. Being a native Oklahoman, it's always fun to watch this movie and be able to point out actual landmarks that were used in the movie and also still exist to this day.
While filming, Coppola took a method acting approach to filming this movie. He required all the cast to read the book, rehearse extensively, and even had them living together while filming to form some brotherly bonds. Obviously, there were some issues. Most of the actors were untrained in the style that Coppola wanted, so Coppola had to take time to train them to do what he wanted to do. Also, there were a lot of injuries during filming because of the stunts performed, particularly during the big rumble scene. Eventually, the film was released on March 25th, 1983, and was a box office success. Nowadays, it's still a popular movie to put on, and has even had some special edition releases. This film not only helped a lot of the young cast rise in Hollywood stardom, but it also cemented Coppola's ability to work with young casts and adapt literature into film.
Now that we have the history of both the book and movie production out of the way, let's get into the similarities and the differences between both book and the movie. So, let's start out with similarities, starting with the characters.
Ponyboy is still the thoughtful narrator who feels like the only greaser who might break out of the cycle. Johnny is still quiet and shy, but brave when it counts. Dallas? Yeah, he's still the wild, ticking time bomb with a leather jacket and a death wish. Even Soda Pop, Two-Bit, Derry, they all come through in the movie exactly the way you picture them when you read it.
You can tell two things when you watch this movie. Number one, Coppola did his best to make sure the actors stayed as close to their characters as they could in order to honor the book. And then number two, when you look at the acting, there's a reason why those actors got picked to be in this movie.
Another similarity is the plot. Well, yeah, it's the same story. What I mean is, both the plot of the book and the movie are identical. I'm probably not getting that across as well as I thought I was. Here's what I'm trying to explain. If you take the plot of the book and the plot of the movie, unless you're doing a deep dive like I am, you're probably not going to see a lot of the differences in the story. We still start off with Ponyboy speaking the first lines from the book, meeting up with Johnny and Dally and going to the drive-in, meeting Cherry Valance, which later on led them to getting jumped by the Socs, causing Johnny to stab Bob, running away and hiding in the church, to saving the kids from the same burning church, and that rescue scene? Same heroics as in the book. The rumble, Johnny and Dally's death, same as in the book. All the beats from the book, they didn't water them down for the movie. Even a lot of the dialogue is word for word from the book. Stay gold, Ponyboy? Straight from the book. The banter between Socs and Greasers? You can hear lines that are practically quoted from the page. The Rumble, while different from the book, still feels exactly like the way it reads. Chaotic, messy, and full of adrenaline. Finally, the themes match perfectly between book and movie. The whole idea of class divisions, understanding that family doesn't always mean those you're related to, loyalty to those who are loyal to you, and how growing up forces you to see the world isn't black and white. In both versions, you get that contrast between the Greasers and the Socs, but also the message that under the labels, people aren't all that different, no matter what side of town you're from.
The movie is almost a word-for-word adaptation of the book. Key word there, almost. With that said, let's get into the differences. So yeah, the movie nails the heart of the book. But let's not pretend that it's an exact carbon copy of what they did in the book. It was clear that there were some things altered in order to be within the time frame of the movie. Some of them were small tweaks, and some of them were trimming down scenes in order to make the time limit. Let's get into those differences now.
First off, the pacing. With the book, you see it from the perspective of Ponyboy. He literally narrates the whole thing from start to finish, and you read way more of his inner thoughts in the book. All those little reflective moments where he's overanalyzing people, talking about sunsets, or comparing Greasers and Socs, completely gone from the movies. Coppola had to keep the story moving visually, so instead of hearing Ponyboy's thoughts, you just see him staring dramatically into space. Same mood, less narration. Then there's the scene trimming. The movie cuts or shortens the few moments that the book spends more time on. For starters, in the book, like I said before, we start off with Ponyboy's first line, and then he goes on to explain the dynamics between the Socs and the Greasers, and even discusses a time when he was jumped by a group.
In the movie, none of that.
We start off with Ponyboy's line, fade to a musical credits opening, and then we start the movie with Ponyboy and Johnny meeting up with Dally, and then a montage of scenes before we end up at the drive-in. Another example? In the book, we go into a court case about the incident with Johnny killing Bob. In the movie, not shown at all. There's a mention of Ponyboy having to go to court to possibly be removed from his home, but we never actually see or hear the results of the trial in the movie. Not to mention, in the book, we feel Ponyboy's emotional struggle with the death of his best friend Johnny, and some incidents that happened after the death. In the movie, it's just a quick rush. Sure, we see Ponyboy cry after it happens, but then after that, it's just a quick transition as if the death happened a while ago and Ponyboy is already healed from it. We don't really get to see the struggle that he deals with. Also, like I mentioned before, the Rumble in the book is very chaotic when the fighting starts. Again, like the majority of the book, our time is spent with Ponyboy during his time in the Rumble. In the movie though, we spend a little bit of time with everyone. Derry, Dally, Soda, 2-Bit. We get to see them from all different perspectives of the Rumble.
It's much more choreographed in the movie than what we were shown in the book. Also, the ending of the Rumble in the movie was a lot more dramatic than what it was in the book.
In the book, after the Socs run off, the Greasers just stare in silent success. Hardly any talking is done before Dally and Ponyboy leave. In the movie, the music swells and every Greaser is jumping in jubilation at their victory.
Finally, the structure of the ending of the movie is quite a bit different than what it is in the book. And to be honest, it doesn't really make a lot of sense in the movie.
In the book, it loops elegantly. We start with Ponyboy writing his essay for school, starting with, "When I stepped out into the bright sunlight," and we end with the same line, making it clear that Ponyboy's school essay is the story we just read. In the theatrical cut of the movie, it isn't clear as to why we're starting and ending with the same scene. We just think Ponyboy is writing his thoughts down with no purpose.
It's clear the movie was on a fast-forward pace of the book. There are a few polished edges and trimmed corners. You still feel everything that you want to feel, just without the quietness of the book, to be honest. Now, this is the final verdict of the review, where I give you my opinion whether I think the leap was worth it or not for the book to movie. Before we get started with that though, I want to address something for today and all future Big Screen Leap episodes, and I think it's important. When it comes to adaptations, everybody comes to it from different sides. Whether you grew up with the book, watched a certain TV show, played a certain video game, or maybe you just saw the movie and you got judged for it all your life because you didn't watch it or read it in the original format. Maybe you spent your whole life being told that you're wrong because you didn't read the book but you only watched the movie. But honestly, that's kind of the fun part of it, and that's why I wanted to make this show. In all honesty, there's really no single way or right way to love a show or a book or a movie. It's whatever you prefer. Different mediums hit people differently. A book might resonate with you because you read it at the right time in your life. A TV show might feel special because you spent a lot of time with those characters. A movie might be your favorite because it's your first time with those characters. And to be honest, all of those methods are valid. There's not really a need for argument between which is right and which is wrong in this situation. What's important is that we get to talk about this on the Big Screen Leap. It isn't about telling you what you're allowed to like. It's about telling you whether I think one medium jump to the other was worth it or not. So if you disagree with me about my decision, that's fine. Honestly, I kind of hope you do. I encourage you to, because then we can have a discussion in the comments about what we liked and what we didn't like. The only thing that I ask is in the comments, keep it friendly, because that's what I want this to be. Just a friendly discussion between people who enjoy stories. Not because we want to or have to win an argument about what's better. Finally, the last thing I want you to remember, this is my show. With that being said, my decision or what I like is not the end-all be-all concrete set in stone way things have to be. But after taking the time to read the book, watch the movie, do the research on the production for both the book and the movie, again, it's my right to have my opinion on what I enjoy most. Just like it's your decision to have your opinion about which one you prefer more. And you're allowed to get in the comments and tell me that you disagree with me. Again, I want the discussion. However, don't be surprised if when you send a long 1,000-word comment in the YouTube video, I read it and say, I'm still going to go with what I think. Because again, it's our opinions. With that being said, was it worth it for The Outsiders to make the leap from the book to the big screen? Did we really need an adaptation of S.E. Hinton's beloved novel? Honestly, yeah. And in my opinion, I enjoyed the movie more than I do the book.
Now, don't get me wrong. The book on its own is amazing, and it truly makes you feel the emotions of what is going on from start to finish. However, in the movie, you truly get to see those emotions as how the characters would feel them, not just what Ponyboy is thinking. And a big part of that is the direction from Coppola, and how each of the actors portrayed it. I truly think that if Coppola didn't pick the people that he did, it wouldn't have been as successful as it was. And I'm not just saying that because of who was cast in the movie.
You gotta remember, a lot of these guys were nobodies when they first started up in Hollywood, but it's thanks to this movie that a lot of them ended up having a name. Unfortunately though, we have seen what happens when they hire a different cast for this production.
In 1990, Fox Studios acquired the rights to The Outsiders and produced a television show as a follow-up sequel to the original movie. Coppola was listed as an executive producer, but none of the original cast from the movie returned to portray their characters. The first episode premiered as a 90-minute pilot on Fox. Initially, it saw some success when it first started. However, it couldn't keep up with what the movie provided, and only lasted one season with 13 episodes. Nowadays, there hasn't been much talk about remaking the movie, but it has become such a name that a Broadway musical was created in 2023 to depict the events of the book. And even before that, in September of 2005, Coppola re-released the film titled The Outsiders, the complete novel. In it, he included 22 minutes of additional footage that was cut from the movie that ties in closer to the book. And we see scenes from the book that were not in the original release.
As I said, this movie has had a huge cultural impact, especially for people in Oklahoma. If you ask people from here, especially in Tulsa, they'll tell you exactly what both the book and the movie mean to them.
The drive-in theater they go to? That's the Admiral Twin Drive-In, which is still currently up and operating to this day. The Letterman jacket that the Soch Paul is wearing when the Rumble scene comes on? That jacket comes from Will Rogers High School, where S.E. Hinton attended. Last but not least, the Curtis House where Ponyboy, Soda, and Dairy all reside. That's located in Tulsa and has been turned into a museum dedicated to the outsiders and gives behind-the-scenes details about the production of the movie.
While I think a lot of people enjoyed the book, I think more people appreciate the movie, which is why I think The Leap was worth it. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy both versions, so if you haven't seen the story yet, I'd recommend going to your local library, finding a copy of the book, and giving it a read. Then after that, see if you can find the movie, especially the full novel version. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Which one did you enjoy more, the book or the movie? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video today, consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and enabling those notifications so you see when we post some more videos. Until next time, from page to screen and everything in between, this has been the Big Screen Leap. Stay gold, everyone. What are y'all still doing here? That's it. That's the video. Nothing else to see. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, real quick, I just want to take a minute to say thank you to everybody if you've made it this far. Whether you saw the link on social media or you discovered it on YouTube, I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you for taking the time to watch this video. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time. An idea that I've had for a long time, reviewing book to movie, TV to movie, video game to movie adaptations. And it's something that I just haven't really had a lot of time to do up until now. And honestly, been a little bit shy to do it because, you know, I'm not used to working camera or acting or video editing or anything like that. But if you enjoyed what you saw today, please consider subscribing to the channel. I definitely have some ideas for some more great episodes for the Big Screen Leap, as well as some other things for the channel. So again, thank you for watching at this time. We'll see y'all later.